And Blue, Bob Dylan, here on Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman as we broadcast on over 900 public radio and television stations in this country and around the world, and online at democracynow.org, where you can get the transcripts of today's show. You can watch it, you can listen to it. Our guests are Elizabeth Thomson, who has revised and updated Robert Shelton's book, No Direction Home, The Life and Music of Bob Dylan, and Bob Fass. Now, as we were playing Tangled Up in Blue, Bob, you were looking at Bob Dylan's face and saying it's a mask.
Yeah, I said that there are always masks in his private life and in his public life. And in that Rolling Thunder tour and in a movie that's not released at the moment, Ronaldo and Clara, he, in one of the improvised scenes, as well as the concert performances that are in the film, you can see him in some of the unedited versions of that film with a mask. You can see Joan Baez wearing a mask to look like Bob Dylan, and you can see both of them having masks on top of masks, translucent masks over paint masks. And you know, he always, without necessarily meaning it, gives little clues like that, and I'm always overwhelmed and amazed.
You talked about Joan Baez. Let's talk about Bob Dylan's, well, one of his closest musical partners in the 60s and 70s, Joan Baez. In 2002, she joined us on Democracy Now!, and I asked her how she first met Bob Dylan.
I think the first time I saw Bob was in Gertie's folk singing, what do you call it, Gertie's Folk City. And he was just standing up there, a kid, and singing things he wrote that I thought were phenomenal. And I think the next time I saw him was in somebody's apartment, and he was singing Hard Rain, which he had just written. It's just hard to believe the words that he wrote. The stuff that came out is poured, poured, and poured.
How did it influence you? How did you influence him in your music, in your politics, the routes you chose to go?
I don't know how I influenced him. I think what he gave me was, and I refer to it as a musical arsenal, you know, because he wrote, if I'd been able to write the songs like that, that would have been what I would have written, you know. And they're songs that are everlasting. And at that time, it's interesting, once they came from him and it had a hint of something political, it didn't matter what they said. They were a tool. They were anti-war. They were pro-civil rights, whether he liked it or not.
What do you mean, whether he liked it or not?
Well, he wasn't actively political. I think at the beginning he'd been in the South, and he had, you know, he had been political in a sense by being with the people there. But well, by the time I knew him, he didn't. I mean, for the next 40 years, people, every time I went to a march, they'd say, is Bob going to be here? And he didn't go to marches, you know.
And what did he think of your getting arrested, of your marching?
I have no idea. I think he just didn't want to think about it all, you know.
That was Joan Baez talking about Bob Dylan, Elizabeth Thomson, their relationship.
Well, I think she said that at some time it was in fact, it was a very brief affair. I mean, it's acquired vast mythic status, and they've both written about it. I think it's the period of time that it went on for was actually really quite brief in 1963. Of course, it meant that Dylan split up with Susie. But they were incredibly, I mean, he gave voice to her. She wasn't then writing songs. She did later write songs. And you know, when you see those pictures from Newport 63, when she crowned, you know, the folk queen with the crown prince of folk and all the rest of it, I mean, they're not particularly good musical performances, but the intensity of those, With God on Our Side and We Shall Overcome, the finale to the 63 Newport Folk Festival, are extraordinary. And then the March on Washington in 63, when they were together. And of course it ended unhappily in London when he didn't invite her on stage, and then they got back together for the Rolling Thunder Review for those some more extraordinary performances. But it's a very I was very struck in the Baez documentary on PBS a couple of years ago with all the joint footage. You know, you could see in their eyes, they were kind of horsing around backstage doing Wild Mountain Time. You know, they clearly really loved each other. And they've both written about their affair, she most famously in Diamonds and Rust, which ends up, you know, there we are, hanging out the window of that crummy hotel over Washington Square, which was the Earl, which was a hub of the folk music. It's now no longer a crummy hotel over Washington Square, it's the Washington Square Hotel. And a fantastic hotel, wonderful place to stay. And it has a huge part in the whole story, as does Washington Square. I mean, it was where it happened. For me, it's full of... I was 3 when the 60s dawned, but I walk around the streets and the kind of the ghosts and the excitement of that time. I mean, they're palpable still. I think an incredible period of time and an incredible relationship.
Since we're talking birthdays, today the 70th, I wanted to go to 1986, just before Bob Dylan's 45th birthday. He called in once again to Bob Fass's radio show, Radio Unnameable on BAI.
Hello?
What you doing?
Well, Bob, it's your birthday in a couple of days. I probably slipped your mind.
Birthday back, I forgot to tell you.
What's that?
I pushed my birthday back this year.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Did you go to court and have it legally changed?
No, I just did.
You went to an astrologer?
No, I just, you know.
When did you push it back to?
Push it back just a few weeks.
Uh-huh. When will it be now?
I don't know. I'd like it to be in New York, you know. I think I'll push it back, actually, until I get there.
How does it feel to sing the same song, Blowin' in the Wind, for 30 years?
Well, it still feels the same, you know? Still feels like it was just written yesterday.
It sounds like you still mean it, really mean it. And one time you told me you didn't think people would get it about one particular song. And I really think people are getting it. Maybe a little too late.
Well.
But,
well, you know, it's nice to be appreciated, though, on any level. At any time.
Well, we don't mean to embarrass you, Bobby. We just want to say thank you.
That was Bob Fass and Bob Dylan just before Bob Dylan's 45th birthday. As we go back now to Bob Dylan's appearance on WBAI again, Broadside Radio Show, May 1962. He performed an early version of a song that would soon become that classic. He was introduced by Izzy Young.
Topical songs have been the topic of the program this afternoon. We just about reached the end of the program, and I'd like Bob Dylan to sing the last song called The Answer is Blown in the Wind. And I'm sorry?
He's going to sing it. Oh, is The Answer is Blown in the Wind? Yeah. That one. Oh, okay.
Because I think this song, while being a topical song, is just filled with poetry that people of all kinds can enjoy. Thank you, Bob Dylan, Gil Turner, Pete Seeger, Sis Cunningham, and myself, Israel Young.
That was Bob Dylan on WBAI in 1962. And that does it for today's broadcast. Special thanks to Democracy Now! Senior producer Mike Burke.